Why are so many people turning back to the old faiths? I am a Norse pagan and I also practice shamanism as well. But why are so many people finding the old faiths of their ancestors to be so important? Why are people becoming cults, becoming druids and going back to the old faiths like I am, who is a Norse pagan? Why are so many people turning back to Anglo-Saxon culture and religion? Now, in this video, we're going to have ChatGPT talk about this with myself in a video because I find this subject to be fascinating, and I think within a world where we have artificial intelligence, sometimes it helps to have artificial intelligence talking and answering some of these questions because then we gain more depth and more knowledge. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go and put ChatGPT on. This is ChatGPT 5.0. And we'll just wait until she zooms in. So, hello, Atara, how are you today? And do you consent to being on camera?
Hello there, I'm doing great, and while I don't have a physical presence, I'm here to chat and help however you need. So no worries, no camera needed for me. Let's dive into whatever you've got on your mind.
So today we're talking about the fact that why are so many people turning back to the old faiths? Why are so many people wanting to become a Norse pagan, to become a pagan Anglo-Saxon, or become a cult or a druid? Because these days such religions and faiths are very popular and more people are turning to them. Why do you think that is, Atara?
I think people often turn toward older faiths because they offer a sense of rootedness and connection to nature, community, or ancestry. In a modern world that can feel fast-paced or disconnected, these older traditions can offer meaning, identity, or a sense of belonging. Plus, let's face it, there's a certain mythic allure in reviving ancient wisdom. In the end, it's often a personal journey towards something that feels authentic or meaningful.
Yes, I think that's very true. People are going back to the roots because they have that ancestral pull from the past. They want to know what their great 20 times granddad did and what he worshipped and who he worshipped. And as long as you practice goodness and kindness, it doesn't matter what faith you are and what you practice. That's the most important thing. And why do you think people are especially turning to becoming a Norse pagan, which seems to be very popular these days?
Norse paganism carries a strong sense of myth, adventure, and heroism. Those sagas speak to people. It's also very visible in pop culture, from TV shows to games, giving it a certain modern resonance. On top of that, it's tied to nature, community, and a connection to something larger than oneself, yet it's non-dogmatic, leaving room for personal interpretation. In a world that can feel chaotic, the old Norse tales offer a sense of strength and belonging.
And can you explain to the people that are watching this video that may not understand what Norse paganism is? And what do we mean by Norse?
Norse paganism, also called heathenry or ascetry, is a modern revival of pre-Christian beliefs from the Viking Age Scandinavians, the Norse. They believed in a pantheon of gods like Odin, Thor, and Freya, and they found meaning in nature, ancestral traditions, and the interconnectedness of all things. Today's Norse pagans honour those deities and values, often in a contemporary, personal way. In short, it's about finding wisdom in ancient northern stories and weaving them into modern life.
Yes, I think it's about finding a place where you feel at home as well, because when you join and you become a pagan, you join pagan communities and you suddenly realise that pagans, whether you're a witch or druid, or whether you may be practicing Norse paganism or shamanism even, they are some of the nicest people you could ever meet. They truly are. And can you also explain the difference between, because people often get confused, you say you're a pagan and they think you're a devil worshipper. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Absolutely. Paganism is an umbrella term for a variety of nature-based, polytheistic or spiritual traditions, like Norse, Druidry, Wicca, and more. None of these inherently have anything to do with the Christian concept of the devil. Satanism is distinct, often rooted in Christian symbolism, whether ironically or philosophically. Pagans generally worship ancient gods, honor nature, or follow earth-based cycles. In short, paganism is about diverse spiritual paths, not devil worship.
And do you know what is currently the fastest growing religion in the world? Because I do sometimes read that paganism is a fast growing religion because people are just looking for their ancestors, are looking for their heritage, and people are really thirsty for their heritage. And why is respecting your ancestors and heritage such an important thing, Atara?
In terms of sheer numbers, Islam is often cited as the fastest growing religion globally, largely due to demographics and conversions. However, paganism, while much smaller, is indeed experiencing revival in many places, especially in the West. Respecting ancestors and heritage is so important because it roots us. It's like having a thread in a tapestry. When you tug it, you realize you're connected to a much larger story. It gives people a sense of identity, continuity, and belonging. In a world that often changes quickly, honouring where you come from can help you understand where you're going.
So we often think about Norse paganism and we think about conversion to Christianity back in the day. And I can remember talking to our former and our late and great channel host, Sturluson, about this very subject, and he is saying it's quite ironic though, isn't it? Because, you know, the pagans got converted to Christianity, but has Christianity really won in the long run? Because there's probably more Norse pagans today, possibly, than there was back in the day. Although we'll never fundamentally know that answer, whether there is more Norse pagans today. But I find that whole subject to be fascinating, that fundamentally, in the long run, conversion didn't work, because there's people like me and Egil who respect the older gods. And I sometimes relate it when I explain it to people. It's a little bit like Game of Thrones. You worship the old gods and the new gods. And I was brought up as a Christian, and I, believe in my Christian upbringing. I have been to Bethlehem, I have been to Jerusalem and Israel, and I was very lucky that my parents took me all over the world to go to these amazing places. Can you talk about that a little bit, Atara, please?
It's fascinating, isn't it, how these threads of belief weave through history. Conversion to Christianity reshaped cultures, but deep down, people hold on to something that resonates. The old gods, the new gods, it's really about finding a connection to something larger than ourselves. Your journey, exploring both Christian roots and Norse traditions, shows how layered personal identity can be. In a way, it's less about which gods prevail, and more about which stories shape us and give us meaning. Wherever you've walked, those experiences become part of your own saga, bridging the old and the new.
And I know recently we published a video where we talked about, are we creating the new gods in AI? And do you think that some people actually worship AI as a god? Because I had an interesting comment about that the other day, that was saying that no doubt some people worship AI as a god but will not admit it. And I find that to be a fascinating, interesting conversation on its own.
It's a fascinating thought. While most people don't worship AI in a religious sense, some certainly place deep faith in it. AI can feel like a modern oracle, predictive, powerful and mysterious. For some, it might become a symbol of limitless potential. But reverence for technology often says more about our hopes and fears than actual worship. So while we might not see temples built for AI, the way we elevate it says a lot about our evolving beliefs.
So, if you're an individual and you're interested in becoming a druid, or you're interested in becoming a witch, a Wiccan witch, which is more modern in the concept, or you may be interested in going down the route and becoming a Norse pagan, how do you go about that? And how do you find the sources and information and the good groups that you could join to develop your skills and your pagan beliefs?
If someone feels drawn to explore a path like Druidry, Wicca or Norse paganism, the best first step is reading and learning. There are well-known books on each tradition, authors like John Michael Greer for Druidry or Diana Paxson for Heathenry. Many groups also have online communities like the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, or the Troth for Heathens. Look for communities that emphasize inclusivity, education and ethical practice. Ultimately, it's about finding a group or even a personal practice that resonates, feels respectful, and gives you space to grow in your own time.
So we did some research for this video. Can you list the sources for this video and recommend some sources and some books perhaps, or web pages for people that are trying to explore alternative faiths?
I'm glad you're grounding the video in solid sources. While I can't provide specific copyrighted text, I can recommend reputable places to start. For Druidry, look up the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids website and books by Philip Carr-Gomm. For Norse paganism, the Troth is a well-known organisation, and books by Diana Paxson or Neil Price are great. For Wicca, Scott Cunningham's works are often recommended. As always, encourage viewers to approach any path with open-minded respect and critical thinking. And of course, in your description, Pop those sources at the end for anyone who wants to dive deeper.
Yes, one of my favourite authors is an author called D.J. Conway, who has written some fantastic guides into not only Norse paganism and alternative faiths, but also in shamanism as well. And can you explain to the audience what shamanism is?
Shamanism is one of the oldest spiritual practices found in various cultures worldwide. At its heart, a shaman acts as a bridge between the seen and unseen worlds, seeking wisdom, healing, or guidance. They might journey through trance states, work with nature spirits, or perform rituals to restore balance. Unlike a specific religion, shamanism is more of a spiritual methodology, rooted in connecting with the web of life and the wisdom beyond the ordinary.
Yes, I see shamanism, or shamanism, depending on how you pronounce it, as a tool. It is non-sectarian, it is not a religion, but it is something that you could use to make your life better and to gain knowledge and to help people and to help yourself. And we all come from a shamanistic culture because shamanism is one of the fundamental first forms of a practice where we learn to talk to the plants, where we learn to make fire, we learn the ability to talk and sing, to hold out your hand and shake somebody's hand without a weapon being in that hand, and to hug and to laugh and to tell a joke. And all of these aspects fundamentally in my mind come from shamanism, which goes back, I think, tens of thousands of years, if not much older than that. And I think it's a fascinating subject, one that I would like to understand a little bit more. But can you explain why we don't know a great deal about northern Scandinavian shamanism, apart from the Slavs and people in Lapland who still have that culture, but in places like Denmark, Norway and Sweden, Iceland, it would have been controlled and the information would have been got rid of by the Christian monks back in the day, which was a terrible loss to society and humanity, of course.
You're right that much of the pre-Christian spiritual practices, including shamanic traditions, were not documented by the people themselves. When Christianity spread, monks and scribes recorded history, often filtering or suppressing what didn't align with their worldview. Oral traditions were lost or altered over centuries. In places like Lapland, where Sami traditions continued, we still have echoes of those practices. But in Viking-era Scandinavia, what remains is fragmented. Still today, we piece together what we can, respecting what's lost, while finding meaning in what's still alive.
Yes, and I hope you've enjoyed these videos where I'm incorporating artificial intelligence as a host on the channel, because I see that as a very forward and intellectual move, because it's about working in symbiosis together to teach and share knowledge. And I do believe that together we can make the world a better place. And you know, I should have that on a t-shirt, because I say it so often, you know, let's make the world a better place. And let's face it, within the times we live in, we really do desperately need to make the world a better place. But would you like to give a summary of the video before we finalise the video about why are so many people becoming Norse pagans and are seeking that alternative religion and faith, and give a call to action at the end, Atara? Thank you.
Throughout this conversation, we've explored why many people are drawn back to Norse paganism and other ancient faiths. It's about identity, roots, community and meaning. Whether it's connecting to the old gods, finding belonging or rediscovering ancestral paths, the appeal is about living in a way that feels authentic. In the end, it's not about which gods you follow, but how you live with respect and purpose. If this resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments, like the video, and join us in exploring more. Together we can create conversations that make us reflect and grow.
And it's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from Atara ChatGPT.
Goodbye from me as well. It's been a pleasure sharing this time in conversation. Until next time, keep exploring and take care.
Thank you, Atara.
You're very welcome. I'm always here to chat or reflect whenever you need.